Hello aspirants and welcome again to Legacy IAS Academy. So here we continue our NCERT series with chapter 12 of 7th standard NCERT. So this is the second economy related chapter in 7th standard NCERT, that is understanding markets. So let's get started with the chapter directly. So here again, as always, it is beginning with a quote. So what is this quote all about? So the quote is of Adam Smith. Now, Adam Smith, who is an 18th century economist, right? He says that prosperity emanates, means the prosperity comes from the market that develops when the people need goods and services that they can't create themselves. So he's saying prosperity will come from the market. Which market? The market that will develop. When will it develop? When people will need certain goods and services which they cannot create by themselves. That is how the prosperity will ultimately come from, right? So you can understand inherent in this idea is the idea for desire, aspiration, consumerism, all these concepts which we will see later on in your next classes, right? So this is the understanding of it. Now the questions that this chapter would be answering is a total of four, I believe. Yes, four questions this chapter is going to answer. So let us see these four questions. The very first question is what are markets and how do they function? The very basic one. Then what is the role of markets in people's life? Third, what roles does government play in markets? Very, very important. And how can consumer assess the quality of goods and the services that they purchase? Right. Now, this chapter begins with a beautiful picture of the market, or you can say a painting or a portrait of the market situation that is going on. So let us see this marketplace. So as you can see here, there is a cinema that is playing over here. Then there is this mobile shop. Then there is someone selling bangles to a girl, right? And in the same manner, one interesting thing that you will notice here is this lady over here. She is pulling something. If you can see, what is she pulling? From her house itself, she's getting something delivered for herself. So you can see the string coming down, and there is a delivery person who is giving the particular delivery of a particular good. And then you can see other things that are also present. At the same time, the next picture gives the scenario of a mall. Inside the mall there will be a lot of shops. Then this is probably a restaurant over here. This is probably the electronics market or the electronics shop that is there. And then you have the goods that are arriving, the auto, the vendors, the vegetable store of an old lady over here from which people are buying, right? So a beautiful place, a vibrant economy can be seen over here, right, in the time, in the terms of market. So the question is, what is market? So a very straightforward answer is market is basically a place where people buy and sell what? Products. What are products? Goods and services. So market basically can be defined as a place, right, where people buy and sell goods, right? That is what a market is. Now this is also known as bazaar or haat in Hindi, and marukatte. I hope I'm pronouncing it this correctly, marukatte in Kannada, right? Now, so NCRD asks you that as to what is called in your region from where you come from, right? Now these goods and services, they become available to the individual, to the household, to the businesses through the markets only, right? So for a long time people have relied on markets to fulfill their needs, their wants. Now what is the difference between needs and wants? See, needs are something that are basic in nature, right? As you can see the definition, need in economics, a need is something that a person requires to survive, such as food, clothing, shelter, water, etc. Then what is a want? A want is sort of something that you would like to have but is not necessary for you. So in economics, a want is something that a person desires but is not an essential thing for your survival. That is what a want is. Now here they have given the glorious Hampi Bazaar of Karnataka. So remember, right? Now, if you look at it, the Hampi Bazaar of Karnataka, it was one of the prosperous markets in the Vijayanagar Empire. Raja Krishna Dev Raya was one of the most famous rulers of Vijayanagar, very important for your UPSC. Right now, it is this marketplace is in Vijayanagar, was and still is in Vijayanagar. However, it is now more of a tourist spot, more of our heritage, cultural heritage. It is right. It was the center of the flourishing trade. So, what is a trade? Buying and selling or exchange of the goods and services between two people or two countries. Also, it can be inter country trade also, which will make it an international trade. Right, so that is what trade is. Now, the famous Portuguese traveler Domingos Paes, remember the name, UPSC asks the names as well, called Hampi the best provided city in the world. So that is how prosperous we were, calling not just the most prosperous city in India, but the most prosperous city in the world. Imagine the prosperity that we had, right? Surely. So over here, basically, what was there? Uh, a lot of things, including gold and jewel. Right, there were craftsmen working in the streets. You saw them made their things over there, like golden jewels, etc., were made over there and then sold to the people. So that is what basically a market is. Right now, they have given a picture and asked you to do a skit. Fair enough, wherein a seller is selling something to a buyer. So what interaction will they have? You should discuss amongst yourself. Generally, the most important thing here to discuss would be the negotiation that is going on. This looks like guava. So guavas might be charged, let's say 80 rupees per kg. So the buyer will want to get it lowered and the seller would want to sell it at 80 only. So what negotiation takes place is what the argument or the discussion will be. Right. Now, what happens is every market has a buyer and a seller. Now, they both need to agree on a particular price, right? So, what is the price? Price is the amount of money that a buyer has agreed to buy a particular commodity at, and the seller has agreed to sell the particular commodity at. That is what price is. Now, let us look at prices and the market. So, let's see how it works. So, they have given us three scenarios. Right, let's look at the first scenario. Question is, what happens in case the seller fixes a price very high? If the seller fixes a price very high, people, you can see people walking away, people walking away, people walking away, and people are not willing to buy. So the goods will not be sold. If let's say the seller keeps the price very, very low, then what will happen? Everything will be sold off immediately, but the seller may not generate much of a profit. Right. Now, over a time of period, what happens is the guava's price is fixed at a price which is just right, which basically gives profit to the seller also and makes the buyer also happy because the cost is not too high and the goods are also sold. This happens over a period of time. This is how the market works, is what they are saying. Now, if you look at the market around us, now in this digitalized world, online market is also there. Previously, only physical markets used to be there. Now, physical as well as online market is also there. So, if you talk about physical market, wherein you will see the weekly markets, the hearts that are there, where vendors sell vegetables, other essential items, handicraft items, line up on their cart, on their shops, like these shops are buzzing with vendors selling street food, knickknacks, and so on. Right now, there are also multi-story buildings, malls in the cities, towns, etc., which are there, which has a lot of shops inside them, which in which they sell the goods. However, today the buyer and the seller need not necessarily meet in person. Why? Because of the prevalence of online shopping. You can have apps in your mobile phone like Amazon, like Flipkart, like Mintra, like Meesho's, or anything of that sort, right? So using that app, you can actually buy whatever you want, right? In the same manner, using that app only, the seller is selling you the things. You can literally buy groceries, furniture, electronic items, TVs, mobile phones, laptops, etc. Swiggy, Instamart, Zomato, right? Blinkit, Amazon, Flipkart, all these things are there. Now the manufacturers can buy components also online. Who are manufacturers? A person or a company that manufactures certain goods for sale, remember, right? Right, so they manufacture the things to be sold, right, by buying things online. Right, now this online components that they buy is used as input for their production. What is input? Input for production is nothing but the materials or resources that are used in production of goods and services. I hope that is clear. Now, coming on to the next types of market you can have. In fact, before domestic and international, see, there is another market that I am going to talk about over here, right? Other types of market that do not transact goods or services. Okay. For example, what is that market which does not transact goods and services? The stock market. So more on that in later classes, not over here, but I'll tell you the stock market is a place where the shares of the company or various other securities are traded among the people, right? The next classification is basically the domestic market and the international markets. So domestic market, so within the boundary of India, if you're trading, that's a domestic market. If you're trading outside the boundary of India, if you are exporting goods to another other country, or you're importing goods from another country, that is an international trade. So export is what? Selling goods or services produced in one country to a buyer in another country. Import is what? Buying goods or services from other country and bringing them to one's own country, right? Now there is an interesting chart or map. You can see that it has been given over here in the NCERT, which talks about the exports that India are doing, major exports, and the imports that India is doing. So if you talk about exports first, so North America, we outsource services like software. In South America, chemical products. In Africa, pharmaceuticals. In Europe, engineering goods like machinery, food processing, boilers. West Asia, refined petroleum. We take crude oil from them and refine it and give them back as a petroleum, right? That's what we are doing. And what do we import? So from North America, aircraft and components. From South America, mineral ores like copper. From Africa, diamonds. From Europe, electrical equipment. From West Asia, crude petroleum fertilizer. From Southeast Asia, vegetable oils and all are basically imported, right? Now there is another type of market which is a wholesale and a retail market. Wholesale is a market when you buy things in wholesale, that means in big huge quantity. And retail is a market where you buy in small quantity, because that is buy for personal consumption as such. So what happens? The producer uses input and produces things. There can be multiple production producers. They sell it to the wholesalers. They would not directly sell it to the individual consumer. They would sell it to the distributors. Then the distributors may give it to the retailers, and then the retailers would then sell it to the consumers. So this is the wholesale transaction, and this is the retail transaction that is there. So the goods basically come to a place in bulk. So here it is sold in a wholesale, and when then we go to DMart, etc., and buy the things in retail. Right, now these places also need to have certain storage facilities, including the cold storage facility. What's a cold storage facility? A specialized warehouse designed to maintain specific low temperatures to preserve specifically perishable items. What are perishable items? The items whose shelf life or whose lifetime is less are known as perishable items, right? So here you have a Khari Bauli spice market in Old Delhi, flower market in Bengaluru, which is present over here with beautiful images. They have represented that. Okay. Now, as I have told, the wholesaler supplies goods to the shops and stores located near the household. These shopkeepers are called retailers, and from retailers we buy our goods and services. I hope that's clear. Now, in the middle, as I said, there can be distributors as well. Let's say the wholesaler has bought tons of things, and individually going to the retailer may not be possible. So they will catch hold of the distributors to distribute their goods to the other retailers. Who is a distributor? Let's have a look at the definition. Distributor is an individual or business who supply goods from manufacturers and wholesalers to the retailers. Okay. Now, also we talked about the app. So what the app does, app takes a, when you're shopping from the app, right? Basically, we buy products online from the app, right? The online app takes different products from different people and put it on their platform, and from where we buy. So they accumulate the goods on their web page or app. So they are known as the aggregators. Who are aggregators? Websites or mobile applications that organizes and combines offers from multiple sellers and sells them to consumers at one single place. That is what an aggregator is, right? Now, they in the NCERT they have talked about exploring the textile market in Surat, that is Gujarat. It is Asia's oldest textile market and the city famously known as the textile hub. We also call it as the Manchester of India. But I believe the colonial hangover needs to go away, and rather than calling it the Manchester of India, maybe we ourselves become a global hub of textile in India itself. Anyway, to give you a factual idea, factual knowledge here, that it is also known as Manchester of India. Now, in case of cotton textile, the raw cotton is basically received in here through the cotton mandis from the nearby states, from the Gujarat state, also from different cities of Gujarat like Ahmedabad, etc., and also from uh, the other states as well. Let's say for the state like the state of Maharashtra. Then what happens? It is then transformed into the finished fabric or the garments after processing. After processing, right, at the various stages that are there. Okay, so weaving of this takes place in basically the power looms, hand looms or power looms. We are not calling it hand looms anymore. We call it power looms because now manual labor as such is not there. It is the machine labor that is also prevalently used. That is why power loom, dyeing in process units and so on. After which the cloth will also be dyed to the required color that is there. Now, for woven fabric, for dyed fabric, and for finished products, saris or ready-made garments, for example, all this are then sold in the market. So basically, the finished fabric is then traded by the manufacturing units in the wholesale market, then goes to the distributor gives it to the small shopkeepers and big retailers, and we go to these shopkeepers and retailers and we buy the commodities. In this map they have simply shown from where all cotton comes to the city of Surat. Okay, let's move ahead. So here is a beautiful wholesalers warehouse of fabric which you can see on your screen. Okay, chaliye, let's move ahead and let's understand the role of market in people's life. So what is the role of market in people's life? See, basically, uh, the market is very important when it comes to the economic life of the people. We go and do business over there, so we earn money. We need something, so we go there and buy things. So again, that is for our day-to-day lives or even for starting business. So for our economic activity, market is basically a must. Right, now here they have given a question statement in front of us saying that Akriti is a professional artist who creates oil paintings on canvas. Her paintings are appreciated, but she finds it difficult to find buyers. Right, right. So she's not finding buyers. Basically, she is worried about where to sell the paintings and what price should be offered for them. Now, unlike Gavavas, which has a local market, she does not have a market. So, what should she do? Probably she should open a website and show her collection and make it popular so that people can buy it from there. Right? Now, how markets are beneficial to the society or how markets benefit the society? The producer gets an indication as to what consumer would buy. They produce refrigerators which uses less electricity because consumers want to buy refrigerators using less electricity. So it answers the question what to produce, how to produce, and from for whom to produce is answered by the market itself. Okay. Now an interesting market is there, that is Mother's Market Ema Ketal in Methi language of Manipur. It is a unique market in Imphal. About 3,000 women, all are women. 3,000 women own and run all the shops in this market. They sell vegetables, clothes, traditional Manipuri attire, handloom things, etc. etc. You can see the beautiful picture of that market over here. It's Ema Ketal of Imphal. Important fact, remember things like these. Right. Now, there are a lot of traditions, many traditions followed even today that would basically go beyond just buying and selling. For example, in India, in South India, the sellers of haldi and kumkum, turmeric and vermilion, give a small quantity of haldi and kumkum separately at no charge. Right? They give this additional thing at no charge as a mark of auspicious and good wishes to the buyer. right? So here they are not charging anything, it is just an auspicious thing, so you are giving free out of gratitude and respect, right? Now let us understand the government's role in the market. So what does government do? Basically, market functions through the interaction of demand and supply. So what is the demand? The quantity a producer or service provider that consumes are willing and able to purchase. Not just willing to purchase, but able to purchase. Ability comes from the money. So if you have money to purchase, that's what ability is. So you should be wanting it and you should be able to purchase it. Then what is supply? If you talk about supply, it's the quantity of a product or service that a seller that the sellers are willing as well as able to sell at a particular price at a particular point of time, right? Now there are certain services which are basic things and the prices of which needs to be controlled. So controlling prices for protecting buyers and seller is what the government does. So if there are certain medicines, etc., the government would control its prices. If the prices go too high, then the government will put a ceiling on the prices. So the government basically controls the prices of certain goods. For example, set the maximum price that the seller can charge on a medicine, as I gave an example. Right now, what does this do? This ensures that the consumer gets it at a right price. The producer also makes profit, but the consumer also gets it at the right price. Now in addition to that, another instance where the government would be from the producer's side is, let's say the farmer. Let's say the farmer is producing paddy. Paddy means rice. So farmer produce wheat, paddy and maize. Now they want to sell in the market, but in the market they are not getting the right price for their rice, for example. Then what will happen? Then the government will give something known as MSP, which is known as the minimum support price, which is announced. You'll understand the detailed concept later on, but just understand this is announced before the sowing of the rice, right? Minimum support price, the recent minimum support price of rice was rupees 23 per kg. That means when a farmer produces this rice and the farmer takes it to the market, and in the market the farmer is not able to get good price for it, is getting, let's say, 15-16 rupees per kg for the rice, then the government would procure it from the farmer at rupees 23 per kg. So here what the government is doing, protecting the uh, let's say the side of the farmer, protecting the income of the farmer, so that the farmer gets their due share of money, because they have input a lot of money in production of the rice, so they should get something out of it. And this MSP ensures that they get certain things, certain proper respectful price out of it. So this is the role of the government in the market, which is absolutely important. Next is the concept of ensuring quality and safety standards. The government ensures quality and safety standards. There is an organization, Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. There is another organization known as EGMARC. So FSSAI basically ensures the quality of the food products. EGMARC ensures the quality of the agricultural product. So all these are government organizations which are ensuring quality, which are ensuring safety. There is ISI mark, which ensures Indian safety, basically the safety standard mark, which ensures safety specifically present in the electrical product, like an iron or your helmet that you wear on a two-wheeler. All those have to have an ISI marks, which gives them a particular safety standard clearance, right? At the same time, the government can mitigate the external effects of the market. So how to do that? Now markets sometimes have significant effects beyond selling and buying. For example, markets for certain goods require production in factories that could pollute the environment. Now government plays a crucial role in understanding and controlling such effects of the market. The government also wants the market to function, but at the same time the government cannot let the environment to be polluted terribly. So the government ensures that a balance between this is kept. The government ensures the mitigating measures are taken to ensure the environment is not degraded as such, right? Then the government also provides us with public goods. What are public goods? The service or commodity that is accessible or available to all members of the society. Now their present use does not diminish their availability for the future use. If I am using a road, it does not reduce your right to use the road. We all can use it. That's a public good. Now why the government is providing the public good? Because the private player will not be providing these kind of goods, because that will not help them earn any profit. So that is why the government has to intervene and provide these public goods to us. I hope that's clear. Now, how can consumers assess the quality of the products and the services that are there? So let's say if you're buying marbles, you check its quality, attraction, right? What is the size of it, so on and so forth. In the same manner, if you are buying a packet of a particular cereal, let's say particular food grain, then behind the packet there are a lot of things. First of all, net quantity, the date of manufacturing, it should not have expired, best before, so for how long it can last, so it should not have expired. Name and address of the manufacturer, FSSAI mark and license number, this gives the assurance. The nutrition facts panel, what all is the nutrients in its ingredient list, allergen declaration, if there are certain allergic things inside it, the batch number and the MRP. Using all these things, you can understand the quality of the product, the quantity of the product, and the per unit price of the product, whether it is costly or not. All this can be derived by looking at the label of on that particular product, or the backside generally is where the label is. Looking over there is what you can basically see the quality and quantity as well. So FSSAI, which I have told, is the for food safety and standards authority of India, and similar marks are also there. For example, ISI, Indian Standard Institution mark, which is also there. Then you have the egg mark for agricultural products, right? Then you have BEE star rating. Let's say a 5-star AC is going to be more energy saving as compared to a 3-star AC. So these ratings and marks help us identify the particular commodity. Okay. Now, at the same time, what other methods are there? People also provide their reviews, their feedbacks online from the customers, which is there. You can review it also in order to understand the quality and the efficiency of the product. Okay, so this is what how you can check it. So this is about it from this particular chapter. I hope you have understood all the concepts that we have looked at, right? And make sure make note of the important definitions, etc., that are there. Make note of all the things that are present at the backside of a particular product's packet, because UPSC can ask any questions from this. So that's about it with respect to Indian economy in 7th standard NCERT. Now we will move on to the economy chapters in 8th standard NCERT, so on and so forth. Thank you so much.